The laughter was still echoing in my ears as I stood in the middle of the new living room, my fingers trembling around the glass I hadn't even touched. Why would we waste our time on some housewarming party? My mother's voice had dripped with disdain just a few hours earlier, every word sharp enough to cut skin. It's probably just a rental anyway. Who celebrates living in something they don't even own? Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city. You're watching our videos, and after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The rest of the family chuckled. My father, my sister Hannah, even my younger brother who usually stayed quiet. They had mocked me with the same dismissive tone they'd used my whole life. But this time, the wound dug deeper, because this was supposed to be my moment. I had worked nights, saved every cent, built something on my own. I had finally stepped out from under their shadow. And still, they wouldn't even come through the door to see. The house felt too big now, too quiet. My palms pressed against the marble counter as I tried to hold myself together. My chest tightened, shame clawing at me like I had no right to even stand there. I wanted to scream, to prove them wrong, but the silence in the empty room made their laughter ring louder in my head. That's when a hand touched mine, steady, warm, grounding. Emily. Daniel's voice was calm, but beneath it was a steel edge I rarely heard. His eyes, deep and unshakable, fixed on me as though he could read every war going on in my mind. Why are you letting them steal your moment? I shook my head, voice breaking. Because they're right. They think this house isn't mine, that I couldn't possibly deserve it. And maybe they're right, Daniel. Maybe I don't belong here. I thought if they saw it, maybe they'd finally what? His tone hardened. Finally treat you like you're worth something? Emily, I married you because you never needed their approval. You built yourself up when they tried to bury you, and if they can't see it, that's on them. The room blurred. My husband rarely raised his voice, but there was something different in him now, a quiet power simmering beneath the surface. I swallowed, forcing my tears back, searching his eyes. But what if I can't? You can. His hand cupped my jaw, forcing me to look at him. And if they think this is a rental, let me remind them exactly whose name is on the deed. Maybe it's time the truth came out. My stomach dropped. My heart slammed against my ribs. Daniel had always been private, protective about who he was and what he had. I never pushed, because the life we lived was more than enough. But now, his words carried weight. What truth? I whispered, though part of me already knew. The corner of his mouth curved, not in a smile, but something sharper. A decision. They laughed because they don't know who you are. Maybe it's time they learn who I am. The sound of tires crunching on the driveway shattered the silence. My father's booming voice carried in from outside, mocking even as he climbed the steps. Let's see this little palace of hers. Probably smells like paint from the landlord. Daniel's eyes locked on mine, unwavering. Are you ready? I wasn't sure if I was, but the look in his eyes told me it didn't matter, because whatever was about to happen would change everything. The front door burst open before I could answer Daniel. My father walked in first, Hannah right behind him with that smug, half-smile she always wore when she thought she had the upper hand. My mother trailed behind, her sharp perfume announcing her arrival before her heels even touched the polished floor. Well, my father said, glancing around with narrowed eyes, it's bigger than I thought, but still smells like a new rental. Probably a 6-month lease, right? Don't get too comfortable, Emily. We all know you couldn't afford this place. Hannah let out a laugh, loud and deliberate, as if she were performing for an audience. Honestly, Dad, you're being generous. She probably just begged some landlord to let her pretend this was hers for a night. She looked at me, her smile spreading. Did you buy fake furniture too? Or is this one of those staged houses they use for photo shoots? My mother's eyes swept across the space, her lips pursed like she'd bitten into something sour. A marble counter? Please. She's probably drowning in credit card debt, always chasing appearances, never reality. Some things never change. Their words pelted me like stones, each one heavier than the last. I could feel my throat closing, my pulse racing. But before I could say a word, Daniel stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The weight in his tone silenced the room instantly. This isn't a rental, he said flatly. My father snorted. Oh? Then what is it? Did you both suddenly win the lottery? Because last I checked, Emily's job couldn't buy her a front porch, let alone this place. Daniel's gaze sharpened. No lottery, no debt, no landlord. He slid his hand into mine, steady and certain. This house is hers, paid for, in full. The air shifted. My sister's smile faltered, just slightly, but my father barked out another laugh, unwilling to let go of the script he'd been rehearsing his whole life. Paid for? By who? You? His eyes raked over Daniel, dismissive. What do you even do, son-in-law? Some kind of contractor? Or maybe a mid-level manager? Let me guess, you stretched every last penny for this little show. Daniel's expression didn't change, but his presence filled the room in a way I'd never seen before. He didn't flinch, he didn't stammer. His words came out deliberate, each syllable cutting through the tension like glass breaking. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a manager. I'm Daniel Hayes, CEO of H&L Holdings. The silence was deafening. My father blinked, confusion flooding his face. Hannah froze mid-smirk, her lipstick-glossed lips parting. My mother's hand clutched the strap of her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. You're... What? Hannah's voice cracked. Daniel's eyes never left my father's. H&L Holdings, real estate, tech, investments. Maybe you've read about us in the Wall Street Journal, maybe not. We're selective about publicity, but let me be perfectly clear. I bought this house in Emily's name. It belongs to her, and only her. I swear I could hear the sound of Hannah's breath hitching. My father tried to recover, his voice louder now as if volume alone could reestablish control. That's impossible. If you were who you claim, we'd have known. Nobody keeps that kind of money a secret. Daniel tilted his head slightly, his grip on my hand tightening. Maybe you would have known if you ever asked your daughter about her life instead of mocking it. But you never did you? You assumed she was beneath you, that she'd never escape the little box you built for her. And now you're standing in her home, pretending it's a stage set because the truth terrifies you. Hannah's eyes darted between me and Daniel, her confidence unraveling. Wait, you mean you've been married to a billionaire this whole time? I finally found my voice, though it trembled at first. Yes, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want you to see me differently. I wanted to be valued for who I am, not for who my husband is, but maybe that was naive of me. My mother shook her head, disbelief flashing in her eyes. So all this house, this luxury, it wasn't you? It was him. Daniel's jaw tightened. Wrong. I gave her the keys, but she built the courage to walk through the door. She's the one who held her ground when you tried to tear her apart. Money doesn't make strength. She already had that long before me. For the first time, my father didn't have an immediate comeback. His face flushed a deep red, veins pushing against his temples as the silence dragged on. Emily, Hannah finally muttered, her tone weak. Why didn't you tell us? I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Tell you? So you could turn my life into another weapon? So you could say I only mattered because of him? You've never cared who I am unless it gave you something to sneer at. That's why you weren't invited into this house. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice. The weight of my words settled heavy, and for once, none of them dared to laugh. Daniel's voice, steady and final, broke the silence. This is Emily's housewarming. If you can't respect her, you're free to leave. But understand this, your place in her life is not guaranteed. That choice belongs to her now, not you. The room went so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. My father's jaw worked furiously, but no sound came out. My mother glanced away, shame flickering across her face, though pride kept her lips sealed. Hannah just stared, wide-eyed, like the foundation of her world had just cracked. And me? For the first time in years, I stood taller. Not because of the house, not even because of Daniel's wealth, but because in that moment, I finally understood something. Their laughter no longer defined me. Their disbelief no longer broke me. For the first time, I wasn't standing in their shadow. I was standing in my own light. And the silence in the room told me they knew it too. The silence pressed down like a storm cloud ready to break. My father's face turned darker with every second, his fists clenching at his sides as though sheer anger might force Daniel's words back into his throat. Hannah shifted uncomfortably, her nails digging into her own arm, while my mother tried to mask her unease behind a brittle smile that fooled no one. Finally, my father barked out a bitter laugh, the sound sharp and hollow. So, that's what this is, huh? You think flashing your husband's money around makes you better than us? Let me tell you something, Emily. Anyone can marry rich. That doesn't make you successful. That makes you lucky. I felt the words cut, but this time they didn't sink the way they once would have. Daniel's hand tightened around mine, anchoring me, but before he could speak, I stepped forward. Lucky? My voice shook, but there was fire in it. Do you know what's lucky, Dad? Lucky is being born into a family that's supposed to love you no matter what, and instead of tearing you down, they lift you up. That's lucky. And I didn't have that. I had you, mocking, belittling, laughing at every single dream I ever had. You called me a burden, a disappointment, a joke. You want to talk about luck? Number what I've built isn't luck. It's resilience, something none of you ever gave me. My mother's eyes darted toward me, her lips twitching with the urge to interject. But she stayed quiet as though she knew her usual sharp words wouldn't land here. Hannah, though, found her voice. Resilience? She scoffed. You mean you stumbled into a fairy tale? You married someone rich, and now you're pretending it was all you. Don't make yourself into some hero, Emily. You didn't build this house. You didn't earn it. Daniel's voice was calm, but the steel in it was unmistakable. She earned more than you'll ever understand. Because while you've been measuring worth by how much you can leech from others, Emily has been building herself into someone who doesn't need to beg for approval. She doesn't need money to prove who she is, but she has it now, and you can't stand it, can you? Hannah's face reddened, her composure cracking. Don't act like you know me. You think just because you have money you can sit there and judge us? Daniel's eyes narrowed, unwavering. I don't need money to see what's in front of me. And what I see is a family who would rather mock their own daughter than celebrate her. My father slammed his fist against the counter, the sound echoing through the house. Enough! His voice boomed, anger spilling over. You think this changes anything? You think your little show here makes you better than me? You'll always be the child I raised. And if you think you can erase that with marble floors and a rich husband, you're delusional. I felt something inside me snap. Years of swallowed anger, years of silence, years of being told I was never enough. It all clawed its way to the surface. My voice rose before I could stop it. No, Dad, you're wrong. I'll always be the child you tried to break, but I'm not broken anymore, and you don't get to define me. Not now. Not ever again. The words came out stronger than I imagined, echoing off the walls with a force that left the room stunned. For the first time in my life, my father didn't know how to respond. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again, but no sound came. His authority, the weapon he'd always used against me, crumbled in the silence. My mother stepped in then, her voice softer, but it carried the same poison beneath the sweetness. Emily, don't talk like that. We're family. Families fight. They say things they don't mean. But at the end of the day, we're still blood. You don't want to cut ties over something like this. I turned to her, my eyes burning. You had every chance to be my mother, every chance to choose me, to believe in me, and every single time you chose to stand with him. You chose to laugh with Hannah. You chose to stay silent when I needed you most. Don't talk to me about family. You only remember we're blood when it benefits you. Her face paled, the mask slipping for just a moment. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low, final. Emily owes you nothing. Not your father, not your mother, not your sister. She doesn't need validation from people who never gave her respect. Tonight was supposed to be about celebrating her new chapter. Instead, you turned it into another attempt to tear her down. That ends here. My father's jaw tightened. He looked at Daniel with a fury that would have scared me once, but now only revealed his desperation. You think you can just cut us out? You think she'll forget everything we've done for her? I met his eyes, steady and unflinching. Forget? Number. But I'm done carrying it. I'm done begging for scraps of your approval. I'm done letting your voices be louder than mine. If you can't accept who I am now, then you don't belong. In my life. The weight of my words filled the room, pressing on every crack in their pride. Hannah's voice trembled as she broke the silence, desperation seeping through her bitterness. Emily, don't do this. You don't understand. Dad was hard on us because he wanted us to be strong, because he wanted the best for us. I turned to her, the years of rivalry, cruelty, and jealousy flashing between us. No, Hannah. He wanted control. And you You were always so desperate to stay in his good graces that you joined him. You mocked me because it made you feel safe, because as long as I was the target, you weren't. But that doesn't excuse it. You were my sister. You should have stood by me, and you didn't. Her eyes watered, but whether from shame or anger, I couldn't tell. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the outcast in my own family. I felt free. Daniel's arm slipped around my shoulders, steady, protective. His voice was calm but final. This house is Emily's sanctuary. If you can't respect her here, then you don't step foot past that door again. It's that simple. My father's face burned with fury. My mother's lips trembled. Hannah looked hollowed out, but none of them spoke. And in that silence, I realized something I had waited my whole life to feel. The power wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine. The tension in the room was unbearable, like the air itself had thickened. My father's fists trembled at his sides, his pride bleeding into the silence. My mother looked anywhere but at me, her lips pressed thin, refusing to admit the truth she couldn't spin. Hannah fidgeted nervously, arms folded tight against her chest, her usual smirk completely gone. Daniel's voice cut through, calm but razor sharp. You've all made it clear where you stand. And now Emily has made it clear where she stands. The door is right there. For a moment, no one moved. My father glared at me as though he could still bend me back into the girl who once trembled under his words. But when I didn't flinch, when I didn't look away, his anger faltered. His shoulders slumped, just slightly, as if the fight had slipped from his hands. He turned first, muttering under his breath, his shoes thudding against the polished floor as he stormed toward the exit. My mother followed, slower, her heels clicking in rhythm with the hollow ache of pride collapsing. Hannah lingered the longest, her eyes darting to me, searching for something. Pity, maybe forgiveness. But I stood steady, giving her nothing. She finally dropped her gaze and walked out, the door closing behind her with a sharp finality. And just like that, the silence changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't suffocating. It was stillness, the kind that follows a storm when the air is fresh and raw, when you realize you survived. My chest heaved as though I'd been holding my breath my entire life and only now exhaled. My knees wobbled and I sank against the counter, pressing my palms against the cool marble, grounding myself in the moment. Daniel was there instantly, his arm around me, steadying me. Emily. His voice softened, no longer sharp with defense, but filled with something else. Something protective, something tender. I shook my head, tears spilling, though this time they weren't the same as before. They weren't shame, they weren't defeat, they were release. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe they're gone. He tilted my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. You didn't lose anything, Emily. You freed yourself. They never came here to support you. They came to diminish you, and you didn't let them. That took more strength than any of them will ever have. A shaky laugh slipped from me, half sob, half relief. For years, I thought if I just proved myself, if I just did enough, they'd finally see me. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. Daniel's thumb brushed away a tear, his gaze unwavering. Because it was never about you. It was about them. Their need to control. Their fear of seeing you rise without their permission. But tonight, you proved what I've always known. His voice dropped, firm, certain. You don't need them. You never did. The words sank deep, filling a space in me I hadn't realized was still empty. For the first time in my life, I believed them. I glanced around the room, the house that was mine, the life I had chosen, the man who stood beside me. The laughter of my family no longer echoed here. Their voices no longer defined me. I stood straighter, my breathing steady, my heart lighter. This house, it's not just walls and floors. It's proof. Proof that I survived them. Proof that I built a life they couldn't break. And I won't ever let them take that from me again. Daniel's hand tightened around mine, his voice low but powerful. Good, because this is just the beginning. They laugh tonight, but tomorrow, when they realize they've lost the right to stand beside you, they'll understand, and that silence will last longer than their laughter ever did. The finality in his words settled like a seal on the night. I leaned into him, the weight I'd carried for so long finally slipping from my shoulders. The woman who once cowered beneath her family's mockery was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone who had faced them, silenced them, and walked away stronger. And as the quiet stretched in the house that was finally truly mine, I realized something with a clarity that burned through me. Their absence didn't make me empty. It made me whole.